Hi friends, welcome back. So we had a wild day in the stock market today. I want to tell you about what happened and let's just jump right in. So first, New York Community Bank. We've been talking about this one for a while. It's been the a bank that's been on failure watch essentially, or bank run watch, I guess you could call it as well. What happened was today after lunch, it was leaked. I believe it was the Wall Street Journal. Basically said, hey, it looks like the financial situation is not great, and they're looking for people to come in and bail them out. That's essentially what it was. And so what happened was that when that news came out that looks like things aren't so good and they're looking for money, the shares tanked and it went down. I think it was like 47%, which is really a lot in a very, very short time span. And then after that, the shares got halted. So no more trading. Trading was frozen. And then here's the thing where I feel like there might be some shenanigans going on. So again, there's a leak, shares tank, and then it gets reported that they're in fact figure out someone who's going to give them $1 billion, and then lo and behold, the shares spike back up. So just the way that it played out with the leaks, the freeze, and then the other news, it's pretty nuts how quickly this moved. And so what's going on here, there's multiple people involved with this. So they're saying there's like three funds. The headline name was Steven Mnuchin, so that was one of Trump's people. I think it was a treasury, but former treasury, I should say. But it was also, so it was his, Liberty Strategic Capital, Hudson Bay Capital, and then Reverence Capital Partners. So they're all pitching in at the $1 billion total. And here's the quote of this. It says, in evaluating this investment, this is coming from Mnuchin, in evaluating this investment, we were mindful of the bank's credit risk profile. Mnuchin, the former U.S. Treasury Secretary, with the over $1 billion of capital investment in the bank, we believe we now have sufficient capital should reserves need to be increased in the future to be consistent with or above the coverage ratio of NYCB's large bank peers. So Liberty is in there for $450 million, Hudson in there for $250 million, and I guess Reverence in there for $200 million. And I was looking this guy up because we haven't talked about Mnuchin for a while. So he was the treasury under Trump. He was part of the repeal of the Dodd-Frank Act, so that was essentially easing banking regulations. So it's interesting that he's involved with this stuff. And I was looking up his dad, just kind of curious. His dad was an art dealer and also a banker, so he's got a family history of this kind of stuff. And I wonder, just kind of, I'm just speculating here, pure speculation, but I wonder if like he feels like it's safe to put money in this thing because maybe he's got connections. If it ever does crash, that that he knows people in the government that would bail said bank out. I mean, he obviously knows people and stuff like that. But just the way this whole thing played out seemed like shenanigans to me. So I'm calling shenanigans on this one, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this as well. Also, too, going on today, and not so much shenanigans. This is all public. Jerome Powell is testifying in front of Congress, basically saying the same stuff he always says. But the basic gist of it, this one, is that they're not quite ready to cut rates. Now, I want to emphasize that even if they do cut rates, don't necessarily think that it's going to be a good thing right away. Don't necessarily assume that. People who are like pushing that, we have to cut, are probably people who are underwater because they made whatever large bets thinking that rates were going to come down much sooner than they are. And I personally think they should probably keep them where they are throughout the year. That's just my opinion on that stuff. Other things that they're talking about here, they're talking about the housing issue, right? So the quote, you're going to see the headlines, is structural housing shortage. The basic gist of it is that if you guys have been following this story, a bunch of people are locked into lower mortgages. So, like if you're at 2-3% or whatever, there's no reason for you to move if you're going to go and move and get another mortgage at like 6-7%. Like that's not great for you. And so that's kind of creates a market where people aren't moving. You also have a shortage of houses. We're not building so many, and there's all these people who move from big cities, want to go to small cities, but there's nothing there. And so what's interesting though, even though we have a sort of like, how can I say, bubble in the housing market, at least that's what I would call that. It feels like houses are way too expensive when you look at the income, median income ratio to price of average home. It's just expensive right now, right? And it keeps increasing. And it's hard to alleviate that. So they always talk about this kind of stuff, and that's something we've been watching in the market. Other things that they keep saying, and this is Federal Chair Jerome Powell, is we got to keep watching the data. Are we heading back to that 2%? Powell repeated the Fed's forward guidance on interest rates from its January meeting. Quote, our policy rate is likely at its peak. So that's kind of interesting. And it will likely be appropriate to begin dialing back policy restraint. So, we'll see at some point this year. When I talk about this stuff, though, I want to mention that at least we're not Egypt. This was kind of interesting here. Egypt, I guess they're raising their rates, and the current rate in Egypt is 27.25%. So, when people in USA are complaining about 5% at the Fed or 7% mortgage, just imagine paying like 27%, crazy amounts. Inflation over there is like 30%, that kind of range, whereas in the US we're looking at 2 to 3%. However, do keep an eye on this stuff because one of the things that I've mentioned to you guys before, even if inflation holds steady at we'll say 2 or 3% or whatever, prices are still going up, and there's a lot of people out there that did not get raises, right? It's essentially your salary did not keep up with inflation. And so we talked about this on like other industries. I think it was like the airline industry recently over at Boeing. There's workers over there that were saying that they want like a 40% increase still. And you're going to hear various things like this. Or say, for example, fast food workers, I believe it's California, are now going to get paid $20 an hour. And it's just hard to keep this stuff in a level, meaning that you want to balance your prices plus people's wages to where things aren't always going crazy, like say in Egypt, right? So keep an eye on this stuff. Other things that are going crazy is Foot Locker. This was an interesting one. So I actually have a friend that works over at Foot Locker. I want to say marketing or something like that. But he told me a long time ago, so I kind of knew this, that much of Foot Locker's business is actually selling Nike shoes. And if you understand this industry, so you can see here, the Foot Locker is down 30%, right? So some of the channels out there that say, they look at the numbers and say, oh, Foot Locker is awesome, etc. But this is something I want to mention with you guys is that when you do, if you do want to invest in individual companies / stocks, it's more than just numbers. You have to read the news and understand the fundamental business. So I just told you, I guess, for example, in the Foot Locker case, if they're selling a whole bunch of Nike shoes, right, in this example, what happens if Nike starts selling a whole bunch of stuff direct, either from their website or they start opening stores? What do you think that does to Foot Locker's business, right? So I'm just posing this to you. The other issue is, too, with Foot Locker, they face a lot of theft, and a lot of their stores are located in sort of like, how can I say? We'll say less affluent malls. I'm trying to be nice about it. Well, poor areas. Like I said, I want to be nice about it, but they're in areas that will be more affected by economic downturn. As I said, trying to be nice about these things. But so basically, the reason why I mentioned the Foot Locker case is that I noticed a bunch of channels out there were pushing Foot Locker, and I just felt like there's all these people out here that don't understand the fundamental business of what it is, right? They sell a bunch of Nikes, but they're in bad locations, and also too, Nike is starting to sell their own shoes, and also too, overall, people may be spending less on this kind of stuff. So do be aware of this sort of thing. Moreover, and guys, when we go through this stuff, I try to show you as much as I can and kind of show how when I look at the news, I try to read everything and understand the full situations. Say, for example, the Foot Locker is a good one. This is an interesting one as well. So this was just reported that I guess Trump was meeting Elon Musk. And if you've been following that story, looks like Haley dropped out of the race, which isn't a huge surprise. I think she won once. No, she thinks she won two. She won D.C., Washington, D.C., that is, the district. And then I think she won to Vermont, but then she lost everything else. And so it wasn't like shocking, so it wasn't really big news. But what's interesting, though, is that Trump, I guess, is asking money from Musk, because obviously Musk has some money. I say obviously, but is Musk liquid? Who knows? Because in fact, which is really interesting, you guys know this, the Tesla stock has really been tanking. And again, this has to do with understanding sort of the business of what's going on with this. So overall, say if excitement for EVs is down, plus they're facing a price war over in China, and also too, they're getting beat by BYD in China, right? So their shares are hurting. And they also have this, there's a lot of bad news for Tesla these days. They also had some sort of arson attack over in the Germany, in their Gigafactory. Musk is calling this I guess, extremely dumb and saying it's some sort of eco-terrorist. Who knows? I'm just telling you, like, who knows on that kind of stuff? Always take stuff that Musk says with a grain of salt. And, put together with the price where they're just facing a lot of downward pressure. Now, the reason why I mentioned the Musk thing, which is kind of interesting mentioning with the stock and understanding the fuller picture, is that Musk was, I guess, tweeting out saying he's not going to give money to either Trump or Biden. This is the actual quote. And I want you guys to see if you can spot where there's a little bit of wiggle room here. So from Elon Musk just 4 hours ago, he says, just to be super clear, I am not donating money to either candidate for U.S. president. And the question I pose to you is, where is there wiggle room for Musk? Because there always is in his language. And if you don't know, I'll tell you the answer. So one is, he's trying to play this as he's neutral, right? But lately, he's been really, really aggressively supporting sort of the right and the Trump kind of people and attacking Biden, et cetera. So we kind of know where he is in terms of that. A couple things going on is, so one is, he wants deregulations, that would be Musk, to get the government off his back, right? So try to find a candidate who will basically help you and your companies. Two, when he says he's not donating any money, etc., he may not have any cash. He's in the hole with the Twitter situation. His stock is going down. Bezos is now the number one, richest person, I guess. And then the other issue too, which is interesting, when he also says, I'm not donating to either candidate. He could still donate to a super PAC. So those political action committees that aren't supposed to work in collaboration with candidates, but it is what it is. It's U.S. politics, and it's also a way to get around campaign finance laws. So who knows if Musk is sincere about not donating. He may not be able to donate anyway. I just wanted to bring that up. I thought it was kind of interesting. And this is sort of the game that we play. I don't talk about politics too much on this channel, but I don't necessarily avoid it. Just I bring it up when it's necessary. And this was kind of a funny headline because it sort of captures the world that we live in. It says here, Trump insults Nikki Haley and her voters, then encourages them to back him. This is funny. And I mentioned this one is because essentially don't burn your bridges, right? So try to keep friends with everyone as much as you can. And this is why the Musk behavior is so odd, because typically, businesses want to stay neutral, right? Because you want to sell cars to both Democrats and Republicans. It shouldn't be left or right. It should just be good car, bad car, right? You want to sell cars to everyone. So it's very unusual for a CEO to really be aggressive like Musk has been in his political affairs. And regarding political affairs, this was a really interesting one. The headline is Fleeing Trump Land, and this is from the Business Insider, and they gave some polling data on if Trump wins, how many people would want to leave the USA. And you may or may not fall in this camp. So I just want to give you some numbers. I think it's really interesting. So here it is. It says every 4 years, Gallup, the Gallup poll that is, asked Americans ages 15 and up, ideally, if you had the opportunity, would you like to move permanently to another country? And so here's some data here. At the end of George W. Bush presidency, the numbers responding yes was 11%, right? So, during those years, would you want to leave the USA? 11% of people said yes. That was right after George W. Bush. During Barack Obama's tenure, it was 10%, okay? So it went down a little bit. And then it says here, during Trump's presidency, it hit 16%. That's some 40 million Americans who wanted to leave their country behind for good. So you guys know I live in Korea. And to be fair to Trump, right, it's not necessarily just the president, it's also the economic conditions, right? So you go where there's more opportunity, or you feel like you have a better life, etc. So it's not just president related. Young people are even more likely to be hopeful expats. Among those under 30, 24% wanted to leave America at the close of Bush's tenure, 18% under Obama, and 30% during Trump. As with all things Trump, there's a sharp gender divide. This is interesting. 20% of young men wanted to flee America compared to a whopping 40% of young women. So if you're a young woman out there watching the channel, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I just think that's a very interesting number that they're giving. But like I said, just to be fair to Trump, it's not necessarily just Trump related. It could also be economic. But Trump is an outlier though, when you compare him to, say, the numbers coming from either Bush or Obama's tenure. So anyway, always a joy talking with the market with you guys. Hopefully this is something helpful and useful for you. I'll do a separate video on the OpenAI Musk thing. Like, I haven't read through it myself, but I saw the headlines and it looks really interesting. So we'll do a separate video on that. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.